Good evening. It is Wednesday, May the 27th, about 8:20 p.m. This is meteorologist Shay Gibson bringing you a wind and weather forecast for CORA's Quicksilver Cup to Port Royal Sound coming this Friday, 4 o'clock p.m. and into Saturday morning. Here's a website. I want to go ahead and minimize myself down here to the bottom. And this is the CORA website where you can find this event. If you scroll down to the right under upcoming events, you can find this right here for your registration purposes and time and date. So we have Friday 4 o'clock p.m. ending Saturday 12 o'clock p.m. Hopefully everybody will arrive down there safely before that time. If you go to the skipper's information up here at the top to offshore wind and weather, this is the preliminary forecast I wrote 2 days ago, and this was basically just a preliminary. When you get 5 days out, a lot of things can change. We're seeing some things that might be changing. For the most part, I'm kind of holding steady to my forecast for Friday and Saturday night. And I'll explain that in just a minute. But this is where all this information will be posted, either in video format as you see now or in a text format. So we'll continue from there. Let's go ahead and look at what's going on. A couple concerns that I have for this weekend is the unsettled weather that we still have in the area. Now, we just had Tropical Storm Bertha run through this morning. It's going to leave a lot of moisture behind it. We still have a little bit of a southerly Gulf flow coming into the area. This is being driven by a pair of cold fronts. So we have an upper trough that's dug down all the way into the southern states and towards Dixie Alley, and it's really just drawing up southerly Gulf moisture up along these fronts through our area. So what that means is, that the chance for showers and storms will be increased through each day. So we're looking at anywhere from 50 to 70% chances for rains and storms. And so that's going to be one concern. Now, most of that will happen during the afternoon heating, I believe, but we may have a few overnight showers, just enough to cause perturbations in the wind field. But for the most part, we're going to have a general southerly flow ahead of both of these fronts. One's going to go through, and immediately behind that, I would say actually for overnight Saturday is the other one. So the other concern I have, that's the first concern, is the showers and storms that'll be triggered by this. And I'll be contacting National Weather Service to find out what they say about severe weather, what their thoughts are on it, and I'll be briefing on the skipper's meeting tomorrow night. But let's go ahead and take a look in the future. If we go forward into Saturday or Friday night into Saturday day, this cold front does slow down a little bit on its approach through the day, so it'll keep the south flow going along the coast, probably more like a south-southwest or southwest. So if you're thinking about coming back after the race or turning around, coming right back, probably a good time to do it, because behind this, as we get into Sunday morning, we have this large ridge building over the Great Lakes, and this is going to drive a northeast wedge down the coast, probably an east-northeast wind, and that's going to make things very gusty and very messy. So I would say by Sunday morning, if you haven't made it back, you may want to consider staying down there a couple of days, because these winds are known to crank up to the moderate values. So we're looking at maybe upper teens to low 20s for Sunday with this particular high pressure system. So just a thought out there, if you're thinking about staying in Hilton Head for a couple of days, it might not be a bad idea to wait this out until the winds switch, maybe over from the east or the southeast. After a couple of days, looks like this wedge is going to be on us for at least Sunday and Monday, just for all intents and purposes. But let's go ahead and take a look at the GFS model, show you what's driving the wind. So we have this high pressure out here in the Atlantic, just north of Bermuda. Still, we could consider this a Bermuda high, driving clockwise rotation into the coast ahead of these fronts. This is Friday morning. We'll continue this southerly flow ahead of these pair of fronts with this moisture. Now, GFS is just showing the moisture. You can't really look at the time frame here because GFS is a very low resolution model, so it doesn't pick up on the moisture very well. We'll have to wait till we get closer to the events to find out where the rainfalls may occur, what times they may occur. It's really tricky right now. We're still a couple of days out. But as we go in time, we see that the GFS increases the rainfall but keeps this southerly flow going. One thing to notice here is when I talked about nocturnal jetting along the coast overnight Friday night, that's one small concern I have for winds increasing. It looks like we're going to be in the probably maybe 10 to 14 knot ranges when we start Friday afternoon, maybe 12 to 16 in the harbor, giving you a little bit of a rough bounce to get out beyond the jetties. But I think this ridge axis that extends from the center will be coming across to northern Florida. Now, the closer we are to this ridge axis is where the weaker winds will lie, so it looks like more modest wind field to the north of that axis. But as this axis is going to be meandering, what it is just an extension of the center where the wind is actually weaker. So if this axis ends up coming down into Florida here, the winds will actually be a little bit stronger. It'll allow the open flow overnight Friday night to meet nocturnal jetting of at least 12 to 16 knots. So we could be looking at a little bit of an issue there. It really just depends on when that axis goes. As we go forward into time, we see that axis does drop a little further south. This is Saturday morning and early at 1 a.m. So this could very well, with this cold front dropping down to the region, we could very well see some of those increased nocturnal jets, and that would be the other issue I might have with these southerly winds making a headwind for that area. And as we get into Saturday morning and Saturday day, it looks like things could, the GFS is reading a little bit on the scattered side here, but it looks like things could clear up a little bit. It could be a much more pleasant ride back than originally anticipated. But I'll be checking with the Weather Service on the severe potential and the storm potentials. All right, let's go ahead and dive into the swells. We'll take a quick look at sail flow, and I'm just going to pick Caper's nearshore buoy just for all intents and purposes. It's more of a general swath of the area, and I'm just going to pick free forecast, wave watch 3. And really, when I'm looking for swell heights, this is the one that everyone goes by right now. So even the GFS derives it from the Wave Watch 3 because it is a division of GFS. As we get into Friday, it shows a southeast swell at 3 feet with 6 foot seconds. So that means that it's going to be a little bit bumpy to start to go out, especially at the jetties. 6-second period with 3 foot swell can be a little bit rough. But as we get into Saturday, it looks like things maybe relax a little bit on the period so that maybe not quite as rough. And this is really all derived from what's called the nearshore wave prediction system. And so we look at this as, here's the Charleston Harbor entrance, and going down the coastline we see that this east-southeast swell out here, looks like there's a primary southerly and a secondary southeast. The secondary is going to end up becoming the primary as time goes on along the coastline. This is going to be a little bit more normalized as we get into overnight Friday night. So a little bit choppy out there just because of the south swell versus the southeast, and that's why the 6-second period. Now, as we get into time, we step forward and we see that the normalized version becomes southeast overnight and into Saturday morning, where we get about 3 feet just off the coast, 2 feet closer to the coast. You get a little further out. If you're out the Charleston-Edisto buoy, that's going to be pretty rough out there at about 5 feet with 8 seconds period. So I wouldn't go that far out. But as we go through the day, looks like that swell height remains pretty solid. And if we look at really where this modeling is coming from, we can take, and I really want to dive into this because this is where the Wave Watch 3 modeling is derived for all the products, even the ones in sail flow and the other products as well. Surfline may come up with some different graphics and some different versions of this, but really the Wave Watch 3 is where the data sets are coming from. This is the Fripp nearshore buoy, and the forecast for here shows that the swell on Friday, we'll pick later in the day, somewhere about this time, we're looking at about 3, maybe 3.3 feet, and then it's coming down to right around, I would say right around 3 feet for most intents and purposes for this, but the period ends up being a little bit longer on Saturday. So I think that's going to do it. But in a nutshell, I'll go ahead and just end it right there. I think that the winds they won't be too strong to go against until maybe Friday night for a period where those nocturnal jets turn on maybe around 10 o'clock p.m. Could be a little bit earlier and then last through at least 4 or 5 a.m. And so there may be some long tacking to do to make your way down the coastline. But as we get towards sunrise, things relax, and it should be an easier sail into Port Royal Sound. And then just the other thought about staying a night, if you plan on staying a night, just remember that east-northeast wedge is going to be working its down Sunday morning. It usually starts out north, and then right when it turns on shore or it turns side shore to the coast, it really cranks up, and that gradient cranks up. So just some advice there. You don't really want to mess with that coming back. I would take those southwesterlies or south-southwesterlies Saturday afternoon and just have a nice relaxing ride back. That will do. I will be on the skipper's meeting tomorrow for the briefing, and then the final forecast will be Friday night here on this website. Until later, thank you. Stay safe.